Let me describe a scene that happens to you at least once a week. Probably more. You're standing in front of an elevator. You press the call button. It lights up. Then you wait. 1 second. 2 seconds. Nothing happens. So you press it again. Harder this time. Maybe you even jab it 2 or 3 times in a row. You know it doesn't make the elevator come faster. You've known this since you were a child. But you do it anyway. Every single time. I do this. Everyone I know does this. And for years, I thought it was just impatience. Or maybe a tiny tantrum. Like a toddler who thinks shouting at a vending machine will make the candy fall faster. But then I started paying attention. Why the elevator button? Why not the crosswalk button? Why not the coffee machine button? Why specifically the elevator? And why specifically twice? So I looked it up. And it turns out, there's real psychology and neuroscience here. And it's not just about being impatient. Let me walk you through it. First, let's talk about what happens in your brain when you press a button and nothing happens immediately. You have something called a temporal expectancy window. That's a fancy way of saying your brain has a built-in timer for how long a response should take. For an elevator button, your brain expects a response in about 1 second. The light turning on counts as a response. That's fine. But the elevator itself, the doors opening, the cabin arriving, that takes longer. Usually 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes 20. Your brain knows this intellectually. But your limbic system, the emotional, reactive part, doesn't care about facts. It cares about feedback loops. When you press a button and nothing visible happens after 2 seconds, your brain's prediction error system fires. It says, "That didn't work. Try again. Try harder." So you press again. Not because you think it will help. Because your brain is treating the button like a slot machine lever. And the elevator is a very slow, very boring slot machine. But here's where it gets interesting. The act of pressing a button, even a useless one, releases a small amount of dopamine. Dopamine is the molecule of anticipation, not reward. Pressing the button feels good because your brain is expecting a reward, the elevator arriving. The second press gives you another tiny hit. The third press gives a little less. By the fourth press, the dopamine is gone. That's why you usually stop at 2 or 3 presses. Your brain has exhausted the anticipation loop. Now, here's a personal example. Last month, I was in a hotel lobby waiting for an elevator. An older woman was standing next to me. The elevator didn't come for about 15 seconds. I pressed the button a second time. She looked at me and said, "You know that doesn't do anything, right?" I said, "I know." Then I pressed it again anyway. She laughed. She understood. Because she does it too. Everyone does. There's actually a name for this in human factors research. It's called the illusion of control. When you're in a situation where you have no real control, waiting for an elevator, waiting for a website to load, waiting for a red light to change, your brain seeks out any action that feels like control, even a fake one, especially a fake one. The elevator button is a perfect illusion. It lights up. It makes a sound, usually a click or a beep. It gives you feedback that you've done something. That feedback is more satisfying than doing nothing, so you press it again, not to make the elevator come faster, to make yourself feel less powerless. This is the same reason people press the crosswalk button multiple times. Even though in most cities, the crosswalk button hasn't actually controlled the light for decades. They're placebos. But they make you feel like you're participating. The difference is, with a crosswalk button, you can't see the mechanism. With an elevator button, you can see the light. That light is the real addiction. Every time you press, it lights up again. That's a visual reward. Your brain loves visual rewards. Here's a study I found from the Journal of Experimental Psychology. Researchers set up 2 elevators. One had a button that lit up normally. The other had a button that didn't light up. It still worked, but there was no visual feedback. People pressed a non-lighting button an average of 3 times less often. The light is the key. Without it, your brain gets no feedback, so it doesn't bother pressing again. With it, each press gives a tiny ping of satisfaction. But there's a deeper layer, something even weirder. When you press the elevator button twice, you're not just trying to control the elevator, You're negotiating with time. You're saying, I don't want to wait, I want time to move faster, and pressing the button is a physical way of expressing that desire. Psychologists call this impatience externalization. You take an internal feeling, frustration, and turn it into an external action, button pressing. The action doesn't solve the problem, but it makes the feeling less intense. It's like tapping your foot or sighing. It's a pressure release valve. Now, let me tell you about the time I tested this on myself. I decided to stand in front of an elevator and not press the button twice. Just once. Then wait. No matter how long it took. It was a slow elevator. It took about 20 seconds. I stood there with my hands behind my back, and I felt genuinely uncomfortable. My fingers twitched. I wanted to press that button so badly. Why? Because my brain had learned that pressing again makes the waiting feel shorter. Not because it actually changes the time, because it gives me something to do. That's the secret. The elevator button is a fidget toy. It's a socially acceptable way to occupy your hands and your attention while you wait. Without it, you're just standing there. With it, you're doing something. So the next time you find yourself jabbing the elevator button a second time, don't feel silly. You're not stupid. You're just a human being who hates waiting. And your brain has found a tiny, harmless way to cope. But here's the part that blew my mind. There's actually a correct way to press an elevator button. Not harder. Not twice. Once, with full pressure, held for half a second. I looked up elevator maintenance manuals. The button mechanism is designed to register a single, firm press. Multiple presses don't send additional signals to the elevator computer. The computer ignores them completely. They're ghosts. You're screaming into a void that isn't listening. Yet you still do it. And you'll keep doing it. That's the beauty of being human. You know the truth. You know the button doesn't work twice. But you press it anyway. Because the ritual is for you, not for the elevator. So if you've ever stood in front of an elevator, hitting the button like it owes you money, now you know why. It's not impatience. It's not stupidity. It's your brain trying to control the uncontrollable. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. That's the weird thing I learned today. Hey, if you've ever pressed an elevator button twice, or 3 times, I won't tell, you're not alone. And if you want more weird explanations for everyday human glitches, hit subscribe. I read the papers so you don't have to. No self-help nonsense. Just curiosity and a little bit of elevator etiquette. Thanks for waiting with me. Now go press that button once. If you can. See you next time.